The stranger in the ashes. The wind whispered across the plains, carrying with it the bitter scent of smoke and death. John Mercer reined in his horse at the ridge's edge, his sun-worn eyes narrowing as he surveyed the wreckage below. The remnants of a wagon train lay scattered like broken bones across the dirt. Charred wood, torn canvas, and lifeless forms sprawled in unnatural stillness. A massacre. He hadn't planned on riding this far. He'd set out at dawn to find a missing calf that slipped the fence during the storm. But now the calf was forgotten. Something far more urgent called to him. John dismounted, rifle in hand, boots crunching over scorched earth. The silence was suffocating. Whoever had done this was long gone. Bandits, most likely. Godless men. He moved from one body to the next, lifting hats, checking pulses, even when he knew better. Men, women, even a child. Then, movement. He froze. A low moan curled up from the base of a shattered wagon. John stepped closer and found her. Blood on her brow, dress torn, fingers still clenching a silver brooch that shimmered faintly in the ash. Her chest rose, shallow but steady. She was alive. He dropped to one knee. "Miss, can you hear me?" No answer. He slid his arm beneath her fragile frame, lifting her gently, mindful of her injuries. She didn't wake. He cradled her like something precious and broken and carried her back to his horse. The ride home was slow and deliberate. She stirred once, just enough to whisper a single word, "Evelyne," before slipping back into unconsciousness. He didn't press her. Her voice sounded refined, her hands too soft for frontier labor. She was no settler's daughter. Back at the homestead, John laid her on the bed in what had once been Maggie's room. A pang of guilt struck him as he adjusted the blanket around the stranger, surrounded by memories, his wife's sewing kit still by the window, the locket on the nightstand unopened since the funeral. He poured water into a basin and began cleaning the dried blood from Evelyne's face. In sleep, her features softened, high cheekbones, lips too elegant for the dirt and dust of the frontier. She was young, perhaps 10 years his junior, but there was something in her expression that whispered of sorrow far older. John sat beside her through the night, nursing her fever and whispering reassurances to the silence. He didn't sleep. He couldn't. Morning broke in golden light. The kettle hissed gently over the fire when Evelyne stirred. "Where?" she croaked, eyes darting in panic. "You're safe," John said calmly, offering a cup of water. "Name's John Mercer. Found you out near Cedar Ridge. Wagon train was hit hard. You were the only one alive." Her hands trembled as she took the cup. "Everyone." He nodded, sparing her the details. She looked away. "Thank you for saving me." "What were you doing with that caravan?" he asked gently. I was traveling west," she said, her voice uncertain. "Looking for a new life." John sensed the half-truth, but he didn't press. "Not yet. You got family I should write to? Someone expecting you?" A pause. "No," she said softly. "No one left." The room filled with silence. John studied her, not just with his eyes but with the intuition grief had given him. She wasn't telling the whole truth, but pain lay behind every word she spoke. He respected that. He knew what it was to run from the past. "You can rest here," he said finally, "till you're strong enough to move on." Evelyne blinked, surprised. "You don't even know me." John looked past her, to the portrait of Maggie hanging by the fireplace. "Someone gave me shelter once when I was broken. Just passing it on." She followed his gaze but said nothing. As the sun dipped below the hills, John chopped firewood in the yard, each swing of the axe echoing through his loneliness. Inside, Evelyne sat in Maggie's rocking chair, running her fingers across the hem of a hand-stitched quilt. Her eyes were distant, haunted, but grateful. That night, John stood beneath the stars, hands in his coat pockets. Somewhere in the quiet, he thought he heard Maggie's voice in the wind, a whisper, not of jealousy, but peace. He glanced back at the warm glow of the cabin window. He didn't know who Evelyne truly was. He didn't know what secret she held, but she was alive. And for now, that was enough. The unspoken bond. Evelyne awoke to the sound of chickens clucking beneath her window and the soft creak of a rocking chair outside the cabin. Morning light filtered through the curtains, warm and golden, but her breath caught in her throat as the memories returned. Blood, fire, screams. She shut her eyes tightly, willing them away. But the room was still. Safe. Clean. She opened her eyes again. The same quilt, the same unfamiliar room with the scent of pine and tobacco. Her gaze landed on a small locket by the bedside table, closed and worn from years of touch. It felt out of place, almost sacred. She didn't dare open it. She pulled herself from the bed and stepped outside, her legs shaky beneath her. John stood near the barn, splitting wood with rhythmic, practiced motions. His sleeves were rolled to the elbows, revealing arms hardened by years of labor. He didn't see her at first. "You shouldn't be up," he said without turning. "I'm not made of porcelain," she replied, her voice steadier than she felt. He looked at her then, his eyes lingering, curious, cautious. She wore one of Maggie's old dresses, a little loose in the shoulders, but fitting enough. There was something jarring about seeing her in it, and yet strangely natural too. "Breakfast is on the stove," he said. "You'll need strength if you plan on walking more than 5 feet." She gave a weak smile. "Do you always talk to your guests like they're fragile cattle?" "Only the ones who nearly died in my arms." That made her laugh. A real one, brief, but unguarded. It surprised them both. Over the next few days, a quiet rhythm developed. Evelyne helped in small ways, feeding chickens, sweeping the porch, sorting beans in a tin bowl. Her hands blistered quickly, unused to even the lightest labor. But she said nothing. Every act of work was a penance, a way to earn her stay, and perhaps her peace. John kept his distance. Mostly, he spoke in short, practical sentences, always polite but never prying. She caught him watching her, though, especially when she stood alone at the edge of the field, staring into the horizon. One evening, as the fire cracked gently between them, John broke the silence. "You're not like most folks who pass through." Evelyne looked up from her cup. "No. You carry yourself different. Not scared, not soft. Just hidden." She said nothing at first. "Then, maybe I've been hiding for a long time." "From who?" "From who I used to be." His brow furrowed, but he didn't press. He understood that feeling too well. Instead, he glanced at the fire. "Maggie used to say the land reveals who we really are. Makes it harder to lie." Evelyne turned to him, her voice barely above a whisper. "And what did it reveal about you?" "That I'm better with silence than with people." She smiled. "I don't mind silence." Days turned to weeks. The townsfolk began to notice Evelyne's presence. Old Mrs. Cartwright remarked on her polished manners. The blacksmith joked that she must have been raised with silver forks. The whispers began. Who was she? Really? Why hadn't she left yet? John ignored the gossip. He had long since stopped caring what others thought. But Evelyne, she heard every word like a stone in her shoe. She'd escaped one prison only to enter another, this time of unspoken suspicion. One afternoon, while gathering water at the creek, she nearly stumbled. John caught her by the arm. "You're pushing too hard," he said firmly. "I can't just sit and do nothing. I'm not some lost girl needing rescue." "I didn't say you were." Their eyes met, close now, too close. For a breath, the world held still. Something unspoken hung between them, heavy and real. His hand lingered on her wrist longer than it should have. "I should get back," she said quickly, pulling away. That night, Evelyne stood at the window in Maggie's room, watching lightning flicker on the far horizon. The storm was days away, but its presence could already be felt, like a truth edging closer. She touched the locket again, drawn to it. Inside was a miniature portrait of a young woman with a warm smile and kind eyes. Maggie, the ghost between them. "I'm not her," Evelyne whispered, "but I wish I'd met her." Behind her, John lingered in the hallway, listening to words not meant for him. He turned away, heart pounding with something he hadn't felt in years. Not lust, not even longing, but possibility. And guilt. Heavy, aching guilt. In the stillness of the night, Evelyne wrote a name on a piece of folded parchment and tucked it deep into her satchel. Lady Evelyne Blackthorne. It felt both like a confession and a betrayal. She didn't know which scared her more, the man she tried to escape. The first rumors reached the town of Dry Creek with a stagecoach from the east, whispers of a nobleman scouring the frontier, offering gold for any word of his missing wife. They reached the homestead by way of a merchant named Briggs, who stopped by John's place to trade dried tobacco and nails. Evelyne was inside boiling tea when she heard the merchant's voice outside. "Baron Blackthorn, they say," Briggs was telling John. "Came from back east. Real Polish type. Looking for his lady. Claims she vanished when their wagon was hit by raiders. Poor man's torn the territory apart." Evelyne's hands froze mid-motion. The kettle hissed over the flame. Her throat tightened as if an invisible cord had cinched around her neck. Her past, so carefully buried, was clawing its way to the surface. That night, Evelyne didn't speak much over supper. John noticed. "You all right?" he asked, setting his fork down. She nodded too quickly. "Just tired." He let it go. For now. Later, while she stood by the window with the locket in her hands, John approached. "I reckon there's more to your story than you've shared." Evelyne looked up, her eyes weary. "I never meant to lie. I didn't say you did." A long silence stretched between them before she sat, fingers curled tightly around the locket. "My name isn't just Evelyne. It's Lady Evelyne Blackthorn, wife of Baron Alistair Blackthorn." Her voice shook. "I was with the caravan because I was fleeing him." John's breath caught. "He's not the man people think he is," she continued. "He's cruel, controlling. He treated me like an object, his to command, discard, or display when convenient. And was, he wasn't faithful. There were always other women, servants, even wives of his business partners." John sat down slowly, his voice quiet. "Why didn't you go to the law?" "He is the law where we're from. Or might as well be. Money buys silence. Position commands fee. I waited for something to change, but it never did." She looked away. "When the bandits struck, I didn't run. I hid. And when they left, I walked away. I didn't cry. I didn't mourn." John absorbed the words. His face was unreadable, but his jaw clenched. "You let me believe you were a stranger. You let me." He stood abruptly, pacing the floor. "You knew this man might come looking for you, and you stayed here. With me." She rose, hands trembling. "I wasn't using you, John. I didn't expect to survive, let alone find someone kind enough to help me." "Kindness is one thing," he snapped. "But you slept in my wife's bed. You wore her clothes. You cooked in her kitchen. And all the while, you were someone else's wife." The word struck like a lash. Evelyne's voice cracked. "I never touched you out of deceit. I never planned to feel anything." John turned away, rubbing a hand over his face. "I buried my wife with my own hands," he said hoarsely. "And you opened something in me again. But you were never free. So what does that make me? A fool?" "No," she said, stepping forward. "A man who reminded me what dignity looked like." Before sunrise, Evelyne packed her satchel. The dress she had borrowed was folded neatly on the bed. She stood for a moment in the doorway, watching John sleep in his chair by the fireplace, jaw slack from exhaustion and pain. She left without a word. By mid-morning, John awoke to silence and a folded note on the mantel. "John, I wanted to say goodbye face to face, but I didn't deserve that kindness. You gave me safety when I had none, and warmth when I thought I no longer deserved it. I don't know where I'll go next. I only know I can't stay where I'm not wanted. If you ever wonder who I was to you, please believe I was real. What I felt was real. Evelyne." He read the note 3 times. Then he crumpled it and threw it into the fire. But long after the paper turned to ash, her words echoed in his mind. What I felt was real. Was it? The heart knows. Rain soaked the dusty plains as John stood at the edge of his porch, the storm hammering the roof above. Lightning split the sky in jagged lines, and thunder echoed like the voice of judgment. But his heart was louder still. It had been 4 days since Evelyne vanished. 4 days of quiet that didn't feel like peace. The locket still sat on the nightstand, unopened. Her scent still lingered on Maggie's old quilt. The firewood pile had started to dwindle, But John hadn't touched his axe. The chores went undone. His appetite, gone. She had left with grace, with honesty, and yet it still stung like betrayal. But the part that haunted him most wasn't the lie she told. It was the truth she left behind. She had never been loved before, not by the man who vowed to honor her, not by anyone. And maybe, just maybe, that was what he had seen in her. Not scandal, not guilt, but hunger for dignity, for freedom. By mid-morning, a rider arrived from Dry Creek. Mud splattered and out of breath. The man dismounted with urgency. "You John Mercer?" the rider asked, breathless. John nodded, stepping into the rain. "Baron Blackthorn's in town. Came looking for his wife. Cause a ruckus at the inn. Folks say he's got men with him, threatening to take her back by force." John didn't wait to hear more. He threw on his coat, saddled his horse, and rode hard toward town, the hooves pounding like war drums against the earth. Dry Creek had never felt so tense. People gathered along the boardwalk as John dismounted. He pushed through the crowd until he saw her, Evelyne, standing between two of the Baron's armed guards. Her posture was rigid, her expression calm, but he saw the fear in her eyes. Not for herself, but for everyone watching. Alistair Blackthorn stood beside her, dressed in black wool and arrogance. A gold ring glittered on his gloved hand. His voice carried. "This woman is my wife," he declared, "and I intend to take her home. By force, if necessary." "No, you won't," John said, stepping forward. Alistair's eyes narrowed. "And you are?" "Someone who's seen what happens when a man loves control more than he loves his wife." Alistair scoffed. "You must be the farmer. How quaint. I'm the man who buried his wife with his own hands. Who knows what love costs? You?" John pointed at him. "You don't even know what it is." The crowd murmured. The sheriff, caught between fear and duty, hesitated. But then a voice rang out from the side. A young woman stepped forward, face pale but determined. "I was his servant," she said. "He forced himself on me. Twice." Another voice, an older man, red-eyed and bitter, spoke next. "He ruined my niece. Paid her family to keep quiet." The silence broke like a dam. Alistair's smirk faded as townsfolk began shouting, accusing, surrounding him. The sheriff finally stepped in, placing a hand on the Baron's shoulder. "You're under investigation now, sir. You won't be taking anyone anywhere." Alistair's men tried to push forward, but found themselves staring down the barrels of townsmen's rifles. He looked at Evelyne with contempt. "You think this little drama will last? You're still mine." "No," she said calmly. "I was never yours. Not truly." John found her again beneath the awning of the general store as the rain began to slow. "You didn't have to come," she said softly. "I did," he replied. "You left me a letter, told me what you felt was real. I've been trying to pretend it wasn't." Evelyne looked away. "You were right to send me off. I was another man's wife. You were his prisoner, and I was Maggie's ghost." She turned to him slowly, her voice trembling. "What am I now?" He reached into his pocket and pulled out the old locket. The clasp had rusted slightly from the rain. He opened it, revealing Maggie's portrait inside. "She was my past," he said, "but she wouldn't want me to die with her. And I think she'd have liked you." He extended the locket. "I'd like you to have this, if you'll stay." Tears welled in Evelyne's eyes, but she didn't sob. She simply stepped forward and placed her hand over his. "I'll stay," she whispered. "Not because I'm running, but because I finally found someone who sees me." That night, the fire burned warm in the hearth as the storm passed into memory. Two chairs sat side by side. Two cups steamed gently. And for the first time in years, the house no longer felt like a shrine to grief. It felt like home.